Okay, perfect. Thank you, Bernd. So as you mentioned, we are behind, but hopefully we will manage to catch up a little bit but still have enough time to go through the Q&As and also to give you some solutions on the CAPEX and OPEX topics since like Fabiola, Heinrich, Marcel and Lukas have explained us, there are multiple species, there are multiple project approaches, and at the end of the day, we are all asking ourselves, well, sounds good, but how about the cost structures? How about the economical aspects? And this is something that I would like to cover on a high level since I don't have that much time. And then obviously it is extremely individual, and therefore the idea here is basically to give you an overview on how to get to this cost. So what is the roadmap in order to get there? What is the, let's say, example composition of the cost to get a first feeling about that? And then also to, let's say, summarize where to get these numbers from, how to treat certain assumptions, etc. So basically, starting with this topic, what we need to do in order to get to realistic numbers that are essential part of a potential business plan is we need to do some planning. That sounds boring at the first stage, but unfortunately it is necessary. And in order to kick off the planning process, there are some high-level questions that have to be answered. So ideally, we have some, let's say, constraints available. It is great to be able to have the full freedom of the planning. But nevertheless, it's Bernd, could you please go back? Yeah. Okay, very good. Sorry. So we need to have some, let's say, a planning constraint. So that means at some point we have to identify, okay, this is the total available budget that we would like to spend, or we have an existing building, it's a brownfield project, we go ahead with that, or we have a greenfield project and we have a nice green field with certain measures and we try to squeeze everything onto that plot. So this is an initial starting point. Ideally, we have multiple constraints. That really helps because too many degrees of freedom are not always helpful. So based on that, we go ahead and start to plan the process itself. So this is done by a simple process block diagram, but as we have learned in the previous talks, there are some variations. So whether we get external products like the reproduction or whether we do everything in-house, everything reflects in the process block diagram. Based on that, we can go ahead and also calculate the exact flows. So we know what goes in, what goes out. This is a great starting point. So we know exactly how much we have to pay for things that go in and how much we can charge for things that go out. So to close the loop here, obviously revenue is also important, but we will speak about that in another webinar series. And then we go into detail. So we start to do 3D models, machinery list, all the utilities, and then the P&IDs. And then at the end of the day, we will have document specification books that we can link to potential suppliers. And these suppliers, they are able to hand us pricing. And with this pricing, we can complete our model. So Bernd, can you please jump to the next slide? All right. So since we have learned in order how to, let's say, get to a first idea, a model, now what are, let's say, the major CAPEX things to consider? So some things might be very obvious, other things might not be that obvious. So starting basically with the civil engineering, which has nothing to do with mechanical engineering, process engineering, or biology. So that's something that is essential anyway, since I need to put it somewhere. So we've seen that nice picture from Heinrich with the green yard. So this will not work in an industrial environment. So we need some kind of housing, and that housing obviously has a price tag. This price tag will strongly depend on whether it's a brownfield project, whether it's a greenfield project, how the constellation looks like. But as you can see in the diagram, it is a relatively big part of the total cake. So this includes everything from planning, buying the plot, building the premises itself. Bernd, back please. So besides the civil engineering, there is also a certain planning that has to be done. So this also includes the civil engineering planning. We need to get the machinery. We need to install units for the utilities like electricity, heat, water, wastewater, whatever is needed. Things that are really important in this constellation is a topic of automation. And then we have, let's say, some general costs. But to summarize here, you can see that most of the CapEx will go for the machinery. There will be a big part of the cake will go for the civil engineering or the civil planning. And then, we have other smaller types, but these are the major costs to consider. And next slide, please, Bernd. All right. So how does it look from the OPEX side? So as I mentioned, if we go ahead, we create the process flow diagram. We get a good understanding of what goes in such a plant and what goes out. So normally, Bernd, we are again at the CAPEX side. Yeah, very good. Thank you. So what goes in and what goes out? So for the OPEX, the substrate is a really essential point. So this strongly depends on what kind of substrates are available, if they are declared as waste streams. So we learned that there are certain limitations to that, or whether it's, let's say, a valuable feed that could go into other industries as well. So this is something that needs to be considered. So we have the climatization in general. So this is also a major block, and then obviously it depends whether the plant is located in Portugal, whether it is located in other areas, which might be a little bit colder. So we have the electricity. Utilities like water, the labor, the employees, and some maintenance. So these are, let's say, the major topics, and what we've seen from previous projects. The main things to highlight is really the topic of the substrate and the climatization. So if we go for decentralized model, then obviously we have to see the cost structure for the reproduction. But let's assume that we will have a to Z installation. Then these are really the things that you need to concentrate on. Next slide, please, Bernd. All right. So the question is, well, now we know how to approach such a project. We have an overview about the major CapEx and the OPEX, and now the question is, well, how do we get to these numbers, since there was not a single number in that presentation yet. So basically, it's pretty straightforward at some points. So that means if we take the example of substrates, a certain substrate source has to be found, and then you need to get these numbers for the amount of substrate that is needed. For other things like annual salary, depending where you are, there are databases available. Energy costs, even though they are they are fluctuating a lot in the last time, but nevertheless, a certain assumption has to be made in this regard. And then you can obviously get quotes from suppliers. You can reach out to parties that are working in the field of consulting, engineering, etc. So then obviously there are also other players in the market, like like the suppliers or other producers in general. They can provide with information, since as you can see by all these events, it's open-minded. So the idea is to share as much information as possible to help the industry in general. And then for the civil engineering, we have the architects, and then on the other end, we also have market reports, but there I would be cautious. So always ask for samples first in order to check if the information is valuable and will help you at the end of the day. Next slide, Bernd, please. All right, and to quickly wrap it up, we need to do some pre-planning, since the question, how much will it cost? It's tough to answer, and every answer, it will be a complete failure, because it will not cover everything, or the interfaces are not where they're supposed to be. It's always good to exchange, to speak to other stakeholders, to get an idea. Review databases when you find them, regardless whether it's for the utilities, for labor, whether it's pricing for the insect products, whether it's for the substrate that goes in. Regarding the assumptions, so Excel will always do a great job in calculating, but be sure that your assumptions are accurate. So look for multiple sources, because at the end of the day, if you will reach out to partners, to investors, they will ask you, well, looks good. Where do these numbers come from? Are they validated? Do you have any other sources? So here we speak of risk mitigation. That is really essential. Then at the end of the day, the numbers of CAPEX and OPEX are not helping us if we don't know the revenue. But as I mentioned, we will have that as a topic as well in our webinar series. And last but not least, I would highly encourage you to have a look at our other upcoming webinar series to learn more, since we have now learned about the basics of the insects. We have really briefly touched the economical aspects, and I'm pretty sure that there will be many other interesting things that you will learn. So please feel free to join the other webinars. Feel free to share it in your network. We are very happy to share our know-how, and I think that was the last point in my presentation.